What's happening in all the countries today is that the farmer is considered as a second or third class job. And that's not correct, because the farmer is perceived as someone that needs to fight the elements of nature and all of this. We need to change this. And this is part of the food literacy. It's part about respect to the farmer. Especially the small farmers are very weak, they don't have power. Because if they stop producing, they will die from hunger themselves. I think we need this recognition for the farmers. Why did we use the power of social media to really make the image of a farmer as someone that somebody wants to have it as a role model?
Welcome to our podcast, The Zero Hunger Project. I'm Suman Roy.
I'm Stacey O'Neill.
And we are here continuing the fantastic conversation with Mr. Stefanos. Do you want to say who Mr. Stefanos is?
I will read once again his prolific bio. Stefanos Fotiou is an expert on environment and sustainable development with 30 years of experience in the United Nations system, private sector, and research organizations. He currently serves as director of the Office of Sustainable Development Goals in the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, also known as the FAO, as well as director of the UN Food Systems Coordination Hub, an interagency unit of the UN established at the request of the UN Secretary General. In these roles, Stefanos provides strategic leadership and oversees coordination mechanisms to support countries on developing and implementing SDG-based agri-food transformations. One of his latest achievements is leading the successful organization of the UN Food Systems Summit +2 stocktaking that was characterized by many participants as the UN Assembly for Food Systems. Prior to joining the FAO, Stefanos served 16 years in the UN Secretariat, including 6 years as director in the Environment and Development Division of the UN Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific, as well as 10 years in the United Nations Environmental Program, leading global and regional work on green economy and sustainable consumption and production. It's exhausting, frankly.
It is a mouthful. There's no question about it. And imagine somebody who had to do all this
No,
work.
I can't even read his bio.
As we heard last week, some amazing bits and pieces from Stefanos. I am really excited to hear what he has in store this week for us. There's so much we can learn. I can listen to him for hours.
Yeah, he's brilliant.
And it's amazing. Just the way he thinks on food systems is something I can take home any day. So without much ado, let's welcome Stefanos to our conversation.
Yes, indeed.
Stefanos, you touched a very key point, especially in Canada. In last year, 48% of food went to landfill. That's a whole lot when 1 in 5 Canadians are going to bed hungry. There is certainly a disconnect right there.
It's really startling to hear these statistics. I think the average person, like myself, food security is not my field of expertise at all. And to hear these statistics it's really shocking. And I don't think this is the type of thing that, I think people think these things are esoteric, that the SDGs are maybe not something that applies to them, or it's something that's happening in a far off place. That's astounding.
That's happening in your fridge.
Yes.
That's exactly where it is. The best before dates, I personally feel it's a joke.
Yeah.
It's a marketing gimmick that causes a lot of food waste.
Yeah.
It's not expiry, it's best before.
And I certainly also have heard the rhetoric about going towards plant-based foods moving forward, and how that is ecologically, not just physiologically, but ecologically better for the planet. Is that something that, without telling people what to eat, Stefanos, is that the type of thing that the UN is trying to sort of tacitly imply?
Yes, if you see, I think it was about a couple of months ago that FAO and WHO, they have done a very amazing paper on healthy diets. And also you will see that there's a lot of work on this, science-based work, which it says what are healthy diets. The work of FAO and WHO is really a very nice document there, and I think it's very well written and everybody could understand this. We talk about balanced diets, okay? And we have even other organizations. You have the Lancet, that they do have the planetary diet. You know that the Lancet planetary diet is not, if you want, is not restricting good food, any kind of good food. It doesn't say you should not eat animal protein, yeah? Of course, it should tell you should not eat junk food, but it can tell you, and it gives you specific, the Lancet goes at the level that gives you specific quantities. You're so many grams of milk, of eggs, of dairy, of red meat, of white meat per week. And if you see these guidelines, it's not something crazy. Once there was a paper about how following a healthy diet could save the planet, but at the same time keep meat on our plate. So it is possible, you know? It's not that it's impossible.
Yeah, I mean, we were taught the 5 food groups when I was in school. And it's to eat a certain amount and how your plate is split up, and half of your plate should be vegetables and a quarter should be protein and a quarter should be, starch, and then there's good fats and bad fat. Even my 7-year-old is constantly asking me if the stuff that he's eating is healthy, because that's what they're teaching him in school.
But I think one thing we need to keep in mind, especially with the kids today, and my daughter is one of them.
Yeah.
The definition of healthy foods.
Right.
Having these vegan diets that's on TikTok or Instagram that they're seeing, what is that doing to their body?
Yeah. I mean, there's certainly a lot of societal pressure, and there always has been, particularly on women and girls, although men and boys are not removed from that. I also am, now that I've become a parent, I used to eat all kinds of things and never really paid attention to anything. But now I read everything, of course, because that happens instantaneously the minute however your child gets to you. As soon as they show up, you start reading everything and anything you can get. And I'm astonished at how much sugar there is and stuff. Like, I'm astonished. And I know that's a generational thing. I think a lot of additives are present in our foods now that weren't, say when my parents were kids. There's a lot of hydrogenated palm oil. There's all kinds of refined things being put in food now that aren't food.
No.
It's not actual food that you grow in a field. And I think that is kids are getting disjointed from this whole sort of farm to table situation. Like, where does my food come from? Sitting down and having a conversation with his 7-year-old when he's eating chicken and explaining to him that he's eating a chicken. And,
it doesn't grow in the grocery store.
No, like the chicken that you can make the noises of, you're now eating for dinner. And watching that level of realization cross a kid's face is really something.
Totally.
Can I tell you a story about this? I don't have kids, but I have a couple of nieces. So something that happened with one of my nieces when she was about 6, I think. I'm Greek. She's also Greek, but she was born in outside of Greece, and she grew up in a very industrialized environment. And she came to Greece, and in Greece we are very proud for our fish. We are an island country and we have a lot of fish. So I said, okay, I need to treat her very well. And the best treat a Greek friend gives to a guest is grilled fish with lemon and olive oil, full stop. And I put this thing in front of her and she was not eating. I said, no. And she told me, this is not fish. I said, of course it's fish, it's the best fish you can have. And then she told me, no. First of all, why it has this color? It should be orange. It should be orange. I say, no, it could be different colors, white, gray, even red. You have the red palettes, but not orange, So I understood that the agency has eaten only sticks.
Fish sticks, yeah.
It's not breaded.
It's not fish. I think that's the problem.
So, Stefano, I'm going to come back to one thing. I know you spoke a couple of times, and I think when we introduced you, we talked about the FAO, FAO. Some of our audience may not know what FAO is and what FAO is there for. Are you able to explain FAO in a few words?
So FAO is a specialized agency of the UN system. So it's a specialized organization that was put together 80 years ago and is leading international efforts to defeat hunger and make our agri-food systems more sustainable. So the goal is to achieve food security for all, but ensuring at the same time that we have a high-quality food that leads to healthy lives, but within a green plan. The current motto of FAO is our 4 betters. We talk about better production, better nutrition, better environment, and better life, and a little bit gradually. Yes, so we start by the way we produce, we distribute, we use our food. We need to ensure that this production is achieving nutritional outcomes so that we don't have people that they are hungry, but we don't also have people that they are under malnutrition. And this is happening within the planetary limits, so everybody is benefiting from a better environment. We have 194 members, which is 194 countries plus the European Union as a member. We work with offices in over 100 countries worldwide, and these are low and middle-income countries, as you imagine. The big objective is something that Roy is very much close to, is a world without hunger and poverty. I need to clarify something not only for FAO, but for the entire United Nations system. Sometimes I get questions, can the United Nations resolve this? Can the United Nations give us a solution on this? And my first response is, okay, who do you think is the United Nations or FAO? The United Nations or FAO is a membership-based organization, and when we talk about the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, we talk about these 195 members. So the question is, can these 195 member countries solve the problem? And the answer is yes, they can. Because it's them that they will lead the world. What the multilateral system is doing, what the FAO is doing, and other UN agencies is to coordinate this action, to bring the countries in a platform that, in a peaceful and professional ways, we will exchange ideas. They will exchange ideas, actually. We will facilitate evidence-based decision-making by providing to them robust scientific data, and also we will cultivate an environment when they can take some decisions which sometimes are very difficult.
How receptive are, and how do you deal with generally non-UN member countries in this? I mean, is the understanding obviously that you have 196 members, but that the SDGs are meant to benefit the entire world. Is there any reconciliation between member nations and non-member nations?
Well, I must say that the United Nations have any recognized country in the world.
So, based on this, it's for the layman, it sounds like a no-brainer whatsoever. Every country's government is elected for the betterment of their own countries. For betterment of their own countries means every citizen is taken care of and no one left behind. The UN FAO is actually working with providing the framework on how can they do better. So why do we still have the problem of hunger in this world?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll go back to my original answer, Roy, about it's the same things on why the SDGs are not happening. Yeah, I mean, part of the SDG that is happening is the SDG 2, it's about zero hunger, and it's not happening for all of these things because we don't want to change our business models because sometimes governments don't take the political risk to do things. Also because the agri-food value chains, if you see, I wrote an article actually yesterday, they're really overpowered by few big interests. And it's very important to understand that the food security issue is not only an issue of food availability. We talk about the food loss and waste, yeah? This is not about food availability, it's about food management. But there's also an FAO report that talks about the future of food and agriculture and talks about the need to tackle vested interests. So there are vested interests, and I'm using this word vested interest in full knowledge because it has been put verbatim in a report of FAO. So we need to work and understand what they do. Another issue I think that we have not get very right, and this is a little bit of a problem I have sometimes even with our narrative in the UN system, because FAO is my third UN agency, yes, we always try to convince that everything is a win-win solution. It's not. I mean, we need to understand the trade-offs. And we need to be very frank that when you want to make a systemic shift, you will have trade-offs. What you need to do is to measure them, to record them, to understand them, and make sure that the negative trade-off will not affect the ones that they are usually left behind, because this is the problem. Because I'm listening many times, okay, let's distribute equally. No, it's not about equal distribution. If you believe on the equal distribution of the cost, and do an equal distribution of wealth also, I mean, you can't see this thing. So what's happening many times is that the trade-offs are affecting the ones that they are more vulnerable. And especially in the case of food and agriculture, the small farmers and even marginalized communities, which, as I told you, have a very small participation in this added value of the global agricultural systems. I mean, if you see the numbers, they are really amazing. You have some products that the benefit to the farmer could be as low as 1.5% of the total value. And I think there's a big problem, and we need to understand that we have led the system to create this problem. And it's not about looking at the past so much, but about imagining and inspiring a much better future.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, very well said. So one thing, Stefanos, when I met you last year at the United Nations, one of the topic of conversation in the session that we were talking about was when we were talking about hunger, there is certainly not one size that fits all, and I'm sure we all know about that, especially with the developed countries where availability of food is not an issue. There are a lot of other factors that creates hunger and poverty and all of that. What do you think are some easy solutions that the developed country can adopt that might help us combat hunger?
I mean, there's a big, if you want, portfolio of solutions, and we can talk for many of them. I think it really starts with the right price and the calculation of the right price of food. And I'm very proud to say again that FAO has done this first work on the global level. Now I know that it continues to go to the regional level and go to the country level. So I think it's very important to get the prices, the value right. It's very important. And it's not about starting, to say, I need to charge more this or to charge more that. No, it's really about getting the price right and saying that, okay, this is what is happening with the price. Let me give you an example here. I go to the supermarket every Saturday with my wife. And we are living in a country, in Italy, that, it's really one of the most diverse countries in agricultural production. And you have some amazing products here. So, eggplants, they were about 3.5 euros per kilo. Okay? Now, it's too much because 1 kilo of eggplants has 250 calories. 1 kilo. Okay? Now, if you go and see another food, chicken, it costs 5 euros per kilo. But chicken has 2,400 calories per kilo. So if you get the calorific price of aubergines is about 20 times more than the calorific value of chicken. And this will happen, and nobody could convince me that the production of 1 kilogram of eggplants needs more resources than 1 kilogram of chicken.
I'm still not eating eggplant stuff. Just so you know. I mean, your argument is compelling, but it's not going to happen.
Even with other things, there's an issue here with the agriculture. The food and agriculture sector is very much influenced by subsidies. So the question is what is subsidized and what is not subsidized. And the question is not about removing subsidies, but repurposing subsidies.
Interesting.
Now, do you think, especially in developed countries, when the subsidies happen, especially in the agricultural sector, it is a lot politically driven than more scientifically driven?
Yeah, I think that most of the subsidies are interest driven and not scientifically driven. I mean, because you have this disease, you have a target to say to remove harmful subsidies. So there is a recognition even from the countries, because the countries have approved this disease, that there are harmful subsidies. And for something to be harmful, it cannot be driven from evidence or science. It's driven by interest.
100%.
Well, that's the issue that we're talking about here, is that hunger and poverty really have been politicized, and it stopped being about the food and the poverty, and it started being about special interest groups and all kinds of other things. And to circumnavigate that must be incredibly challenging.
Yeah, and especially in developed countries, but even in developing countries,
Yeah.
hunger, I strongly believe, is a political will.
100%, absolutely 100%. Certainly from a social justice standpoint, it is.
Yeah. So, Stefanos, there's one thing that I want to ask you. I'm going to read it out word to word. Something that you wrote very recently, I think on LinkedIn, but I really loved it, but I just want to bring up and dig a little bit deep into this. You said food systems must be more than just feed people. They must empower them. We need a shift from passive consumers to active food citizens. This is amazing. It resonated so well with me. But can we unpack this a little bit for our listeners?
Yeah. We tend, and even I would say that I have a little bit of a problem sometimes with the word consumer, because it has been equalized to value, someone that is buying things. What I mean by food citizen, it's someone that it has a right to food, and it's someone that can challenge the way that the food is brought in front of them. It can advocate for policies that they prioritize people over profit, which is very important, and build local sustainable alternatives. And one of the big things that I think what I need to highlight, because you asked me what it could be done as a win-win, as a fast solution, is this localization of the sustainable alternatives, that they are sustainable, they are nutritious, they are planet, they care for the planet. And we can see that there is a kind of momentum to increase these alternatives. Even in the North America, in the US, I was looking at the number of farmer markets between 2000 and 2020, gone something like 10 times up. But they're not enough. They're not enough. So we need more of these markets. We need to bridge the gap between the producer and the consumer and the citizen and the food citizen. So a food citizen is someone that has more choices. I think it's possible, especially today that we're talking about blockchains, we're talking about distribution channels, that they have become much more efficient. So why don't we think as citizens how we can increase the value that farmers get from the production and distribution of food? While a food citizen is someone that puts itself, I think there's an English expression, I'm going to put myself in the shoes of the farmer, in the shoes of a person that is working in a farm, and understand a little bit how things are done. One question here is where we start from, and I think that, unfortunately, we don't have a switch to change everything from one, and it will take years, it might take generations, okay? And I think we need to start from food literacy. It's very important. Food literacy is a very important thing. We take food, and we take also another thing, environmental goods as grounded. But it's not. I mean, the clean air and the clean water is not grounded, unfortunately. It used to be maybe 2,000 years ago, but not today.
These are non-renewable resources at this point.
So you need a kind of food literacy that people will become better food citizens and not buyers of food.
It's fantastic.
I wanted to ask you, I have a couple of questions to ask you, if I may. One of them is, how do you deal with farmer attrition? Like, there are farmers, particularly in the United States and Canada, who can't afford to farm anymore, and they're selling their farms, their huge generational farms, to developers, because it's easier for them to do that than try and keep going in farming. You know, there are too many uncertainties for a lot of people who farm around the world. And how do you incentivize people to stay or go into farming? That's my first question. And then my second question is, what is your best case scenario with all of this? What is your best case outcome?
Okay, this is so. First of all, I'm not really familiar with what you describe as a kind of trend. But on your question, I think we need to give more credibility and more visibility and more kind of respect to the work of a farmer. So what's happening in all the countries today is that the farmer is considered as a second or third class job. And that's not correct, because, you know, the farmer is perceived as someone that needs to fight the elements of nature and all of this. We need to change this. And this is part of the food literacy. Okay? It's part about respect to the farmer. You know, the farmers, especially the small farmers, are very weak. They don't have power. Because if they stop producing, they will die from hunger themselves. So it's a bit of a paradox that a farmer that producing food is dying from hunger. So I think we need this recognition for the farmers. So we have the media to do. I mean, look at social media, all right? So why did we use the power of social media to really make the image of a farmer as someone that somebody wants to have it as a role model?
As a noble profession.
Let's see. Tell us that we have no hope. But, you know, we have many cases in the course of history where at last minute humanity has done its miracle. This last minute maybe has, I don't know if we're in the 5 minutes before 12 or if we're in the 12th hour. I don't want to, I mean, I'm not the person that I would believe on tomorrow we will have a catastrophe and will be disappeared. But I think we really need to claim rights. Suman, you said that people go and elect their governments. Maybe this is the biggest power that they have. To reward the ones that they put into the agenda, this matters. But to do this, you really need to establish a level of information towards the citizens so they can make informed voting choices. And that's very, very important.
Especially with the current geopolitical situation, Stefanos, this is such a key message to all our listeners and viewers. You have the power. You certainly do with your votes. Exercise it in the right way.
Yes, and sometimes with a little bit of non-harmful and non-violent activism. Okay? And I used to be, when I was a young person in the university, I used to be an activist, a non-violent activist, yeah? Someone that could sit outside, and I've done this thing. We sat with my fellow students for 1 week outside of the Ministry of Forestry in Greece when they were trying to pass a law that we didn't like. And we watched. There was no violence. We were sitting there, we were thinking, and we were having even a little bit of fun. So we need this kind of activism, but it should not be toxic activism. Because that's another thing that has happened. It has gone to a toxic level. It's not about his fight. You know, it's about a contribution to a better future. And this needs a non-violent, non-toxic, and very community-oriented activism.
Absolutely. And this podcast, for example, is our way of activism.
That's right.
This is a non-violent way, having right conversations, bringing the right topics up front, hearing from people, and we just don't get no for an answer.
Well, that's unfortunately for most people. I wanted to ask you in that vein, you've been interviewed a lot. What is the one question that you wish people would ask you that they're just not asking you?
Maybe people could ask me what's the most surprising thing about me.
Okay, I will take that up. Apart from the fact that you like eggplants, which I find shocking, what is the most surprising thing about you, Stefanos?
I'm a big crier for many movies. I cry in movies so
Softy! I love that.
to the level that sometimes in the cinema, there are people that will look at me and they ask my wife if something is happening.
Did somebody die? I love that. You're a big boo-hooer.
Well, Stefanos, if you see the way the food industry is going, There's a lot to cry,
Yeah, there's a lot to cry about.
unfortunately.
Well, we really want to thank you so much for your time. You're in Rome right now, that you've taken away from being in that beautiful place to talk to us today about these vitally important issues that I think, what you've covered today has been incredibly informative and really helpful. And it's certainly food for thought, as it were.
Absolutely. Stefanos, thank you so much for coming. And I'm looking forward to seeing you back at the high-level political forum, Innovations and the World Food Forum if you're there.
Sure. So much, Stacey, thank you very much. I have a kind of proposal. If you ever are in Italy or in Greece, Stacey, give me a call because I can confect you the eggplant.
I mean, challenge accepted, and I will be right there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stefanos.